So in this video, I want to teach you how I managed to overcome my very intense daydreaming. So for a lot of my life, I was always a deep thinker, a dense thinker, and other people even saw this in me. I'll explain. So I wasn't a deep thinker in the sense of like a philosopher, coming up with philosophies of life, coming up with scientific ideas and stuff. I was the type of person who would always be lost in thought involuntarily. So for example, it wasn't just in my studies, but let's say for example in class. In class, I would pay attention for maybe like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I'd be focused. But then after that, my mind would take off into another dimension. Sometimes it would be like fantasizing about what I'd do later. I would be fantasizing about what I was going to do at lunch. But often it would be like very negative thinking. And my mind would take me on this journey to another dimension. And so I couldn't focus. Then I'd come back into the class 20 minutes later, and I'd have no idea what was going on. And I felt like I was the only one suffering with this, because the teacher would randomly pick on students to answer questions. And every time the teacher would pick on a student, they would always be able to answer it. But the teacher would purposely pick on me because she could tell I wasn't paying attention. And she'd be like, okay, Penrose, what do you think about this question? And I literally wouldn't be able to answer it because I wasn't even paying attention. And so the teacher was getting mad at me for the fact that I was daydreaming. But the worst part was, I wasn't doing this on purpose. It's not like I sat there and went like, okay, I want to think about this. I was actually trying to pay attention to the class because I wanted to pass. I wanted to do well on the exam. But my mind was pulling me against my will. If I was suffering with like phone addiction, let's say for example, at least with that, I could literally like put my phone in another room. At least all I would have to do is force my body to sit down and study. But when I would literally force my body to sit down and study and be there with my work, I would disappear into my mind. And you can never escape your mind. So I felt literally hopeless, lost. I didn't know what to do. And it wasn't just in studies, even in social situations. My friends literally, they made fun of me for this. Because I would sit there, I would like take a bite of food, and then I would sit there lost in thought for like 10 minutes. And again, it wasn't voluntary, and it was often very negative thoughts about people judging me, about how I'm gonna fail, about what I have to do. This was a problem that was much deeper than I thought. And since about 2017, I went on a journey to try to figure this out. And for about 4 years, I literally had no idea what to do. I literally tried everything. I tried focusing harder. People online said like, tell yourself, stop thinking, stop thinking, stop thinking. That didn't work. I thought I had like ADHD and I had to get medicine or something. Coffee didn't work, No advice online was working until I met this guy called Tushar, who saved my life. And he basically like saved me, and he woke me up from this daydreaming haze that I was in. So in this video, I'm going to teach you some of the things he helped me with. If you're on this journey alone and you want my personal help to help you overcome this exact problem, check out the first link in the description. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to daydreaming is we need to understand why thoughts are such a problem and how to stop thoughts. How do we stop all this thinking from going on? So this is probably the scenario that happens to you. You sit down to study and maybe you're focused for like 10, 15 minutes, everything's going well, but then one thought pops into your mind. Maybe you get a question wrong and you get the thought of like, oh no, I got the question wrong. And then that thought takes you to another thought. Oh no, I got the question wrong. Oh no, I'm going to fail this exam. This is exactly like last sem. Why can't I fail this exam? Josh did this topic in like 1 hour. What's wrong with me? Am I dumb or something? My parents are going to get mad at me. They're paying like thousands of dollars for this subject. I'm going to let them down. I'm going to be a failure. And you get lost into this storm of thoughts. And that's what daydreaming is. One thought comes up, and then you get pulled onto this journey of thoughts until it becomes so dense. Sometimes it's so dense, you're not even aware you're thinking. You're just aware that you're in this like foggy haze. Like I used to have this experience where I would be like, it's like brain fog, where I know I would be lost in thought, but I couldn't exactly pick up like what thoughts I was lost in. So it's a serious problem because it pulls you so hard into it. And the other thing is the nature of it is it tends to be very negative. It like pulls you onto these negative thought spirals. Although sometimes it can be positive. Like sometimes I would be listening to a song and I would get pulled into this fantasy of like imagining myself performing this song or something. But the point is, what happens is a thought comes and the thought puts an emotion in you, like, oh, negativity. And you start to feel tightness in your body, maybe in your chest. And then you get pulled into these thought loops and you feel so uncomfortable in your body and you get lost in these thoughts. So that's what daydreaming is. So this is why the solution, like one of the things you have to realize is you have to stop these thoughts. Because imagine you stopped this onslaught of thoughts, you could focus, right? Now, of course, this is easier said than done, unless you're enlightened, maybe you're not going to be able to stop thinking altogether. But here's what I want to tell you. First, you need to understand the nature of thoughts. So what exactly are thoughts? Okay, so the first thing to understand is there are necessary thoughts and there are unnecessary thoughts. So necessary thoughts are things like, you're doing a maths problem and you think about the maths problem. Like, okay, so I got to carry the 5, I got to do this integral, I'm going to use this formula. So that thinking is useful. You need it to solve problems. You need it to plan. But a lot of our thinking is so-called unnecessary thinking. For example, when you get pulled into that thought loop about how you're going to fail, that is not the reality. The reality is you are sitting here with this homework. That imagination about you going to fail, that's in the future. That hasn't happened yet. So that kind of thinking is unnecessary. All it does is prevents us from being able to focus, which is what we need to pass the exam, if that makes sense. So here's the nature of thoughts. So Tushar, the guy who helped me, he explained this very nicely to me. There are 2 kinds of thoughts, past and future. Past memories, experiences from the past, or future imaginations. So when you're studying, maybe past memories of you failing, past memories of your teacher getting mad at you, your parents getting mad at you, or future imaginations. I'm going to fail, or I'm not going to get my dream job. So past and future is where your thoughts can go. And there are 3 kinds of thoughts, positive, negative, and neutral. So your thoughts can be future, past, positive, negative, or neutral. So positive thought about the past is like, oh, my teacher said I did a good job. This feels so good. Negative thought about the past is like, oh, I failed this exam. I hope I don't fail again. Neutral thought in the past is like, oh, I saw a cat yesterday. So positive, negative, neutral, past, future. Those are the only kinds of thoughts you can get. And here's what you need to understand about thoughts. This is their nature. So Tushar actually explained this in a call today, which I found very, very interesting. He gave the example of the homeless guy. So let's say, for example, there's a homeless guy on the street and he asks you for money, like, please give me some spare change. If you give him money, he will remember you. Oh, this guy gave me money yesterday. So when you come back to that same location and see the same homeless guy, he remembers, oh, that guy gave me money yesterday. I'm going to ask him again. And if you then give him money again, then the next day, he's going to ask you even harder. Like, hey, please, can I have some more money? Please, can I have some more money? And then let's say to get rid of him, you're like, oh, please go away here, take some money, take some money. Do you think he's going to go away? No, the next day, he's going to ask you even harder. He's going to follow you for like 10 minutes to get money. He's going to follow you to your house. So your thoughts are exactly like this homeless guy. When you feed your thoughts, when you give importance to your thoughts, that's the equivalent of giving money to the homeless guy. When you give importance to the negative thoughts about failing, they get stronger. So the way to come out of this daydreaming is to realize that your thoughts are like homeless guys. So we're not getting rid of the homeless guys from the street. We're not trying to, get them off the streets. We're just stopping giving them money. By the way, I'm not saying don't give money to homeless guys. This is just an example. But you can't get rid of your thoughts. Your thoughts are always going to be there. So Tushar, he's been meditating for 11 years. I asked him a question yesterday. Okay, so you've been meditating for 11 years. Does that mean you don't think anymore? And he told me no. He still thinks. He has periods of the day where he's not thinking, but he's still thinking for most of the day. He can't stop his thoughts. Thoughts are always going to be there in the background. Just like, background noise in the cafe, thoughts are always going to be there. The only thing we can change is our relationship to those thoughts. So we can't get rid of homeless guys from the street, but we can stop giving them money. We can't get rid of these negative thoughts about memories of failing, imagination of how this is going to go wrong. We can't get rid of these thoughts. These thoughts are going to come to us against our will. But what we can do is look at these thoughts like those homeless guys and not give them importance. So yeah, Tushar, he told me that, he still gets stressed, but what he does is he's aware of when he much more quickly becomes aware that he's stressed, so he comes out of it quickly, if that makes sense. So he's still going to get these negative thoughts. Everybody gets negative thoughts, but he comes out of it quickly. He doesn't get pulled into those spirals. So if you simply understand that this is the nature of thoughts, you can observe them without getting pulled into them. You just allow them to be there. And this is the problem with a lot of advice online. They will tell you to force your thoughts away. They'll say like, okay, tell yourself, stop thinking, stop thinking, stop thinking. Or they'll tell you to flood yourself with positive thinking. Like, I'm so good, I'm gonna pass, I'm amazing, I'm so good. And this hides those thoughts maybe for a while, but it suppresses them. And when you suppress your thoughts, when you suppress your emotions, they come back harder, they explode. So it's not about getting rid of these negative thoughts because they're always gonna be there. It's about just allowing them to be there and coming back to your studies, if that makes sense. Now, this might not seem very practical, but even just the awareness of this will help you. If you can just sit down and just be like, okay, look, I'm thinking. These thoughts say nothing about what I'm doing now. They are just past memories. They don't influence how I'm doing now. You essentially give your power away from them. You sort of weaken the power of daydreaming. So you might still get those daydreaming thoughts, but they're gonna get weaker. And the more you do this, the more you don't feed that homeless guy, the weaker he gets, the less he annoys you. So keep practicing this and eventually the thoughts will not be as strong. And just like the homeless guy, he starts to learn your patterns, your ways. He starts to realize, okay, at 5:15, this guy comes off work and he walks down this street. And then suddenly all these homeless guys are waiting for you at 5:15. So maybe you have the exact same daydreaming pattern. For me, I would sit down, I would open my textbook, and I would be able to read pretty fine for about 15 minutes. And then my army of homeless guys would attack. And then my daydreaming would attack. So you're stuck in what's called a pattern, where you follow the exact same routine and the exact same daydreaming hits you. So again, be aware, okay, 15 minutes, daydreaming thoughts may come, just don't give them importance, come back to your work, just be aware of it. And look, one of the biggest things that helped me be aware of my thoughts, I'll talk about this briefly, is meditation. Because, okay, so this year I started getting way more into meditation because I went to a meditation retreat in March. So it was a 10-day, it's called Vipassana. It's a 10-day meditation retreat where there's silence, no speaking, no technology, and you meditate for about 12 hours per day. So I drive for 2 hours to go to this center. I'm literally here for a week just to meditate. I'm sitting there on the cushion for the first session. I'm literally here, I'm sitting on this cushion just to meditate. And they give us the first instructions. Okay, focus on your breath. And so I sit there and I focus on my breath. I'm in this center purely for the task of meditation. And within 10 seconds, my mind takes off into some fantasy from the past. And I sit there, literally, I've come all the way here just to focus on my breath, just to meditate. And I end up sitting there for 10 minutes thinking. And then 10 minutes later, I realize, oh wait, I'm supposed to be focusing on my breath. I've been lost in thought. And I come back to my breath. So there's nothing wrong with that. But what meditation helps you realize is the nature of your mind. The nature of your mind is it's crazy. It pulls you into really random directions. And when you practice meditation, you practice disconnecting yourself from that powerful mind and you start to come out of this dense thinking that I was talking about. So I used to be a very dense thinker, constantly stuck in thought, and meditation has at least given me some relief from that, where I'm not as dense of a thinker. So thoughts do still come, homeless guys still do come, but I give them less importance so they don't stick around for as long, if that makes sense. So meditation can help you a lot with that. Okay, so the next thing to understand is, why does your brain attack you with these negative thoughts, and why do they happen specifically during studying or other very specific situations? Why don't they happen when you're having fun playing video games, for example? And so the reason is actually very simple. It's because your nervous system, your mind, is perceiving studying as a threat. So let me give you an example. Let's say a bear comes running at you and he's gonna attack you. Your body gets scared, like, oh, a bear is running at me, I gotta protect myself. And so automatically you go into flight mode. Maybe you run away, your body fills you with adrenaline, you run away, you escape, you get out of there. So your body wants to protect you. It automatically makes you do that. But when you sit down to study, you can't really run away because you know you have to study, so you force yourself to sit down. But if your nervous system is perceiving studying as a threat, maybe because you've had bad experiences in the past, comparing yourself to others, failing, pressure from your parents, whatever it might be, fear of failing, your brain doesn't protect you by making you run away. In many situations it does. But if you're like me, your brain protects you by giving you a bunch of thoughts, by pulling you into thoughts, by essentially pulling you away from the work. So the way I like to describe it is like you get pulled into another dimension. So your brain protects you not physically, but mentally. It pulls you away. And so the thing to understand is, okay, so we know so far there's a pattern. There's a pattern around your daydreaming. But now we need to ask ourselves, okay, what is the threat that my brain is trying to protect me from? What does my brain think the danger is with this studying? And so when you start to understand the root cause of why your brain wants to protect you, you can begin to rewire that and start to retrain yourself that studying is safe and that it doesn't need to run. And the harsh reality is you're going to have to experience that negative feeling either way. You're going to have to push through and study at some point. So the longer you procrastinate this, the longer you simply push off the fact that you have to face that negative feeling. So yes, you do need to have a bit of courage here to face it, because you're going to have to face it eventually. Because I'm going to tell you, okay, the next section I want to go into might seem a bit dark, but hopefully this will give you some hope. So we actually have this, this habit inside of us. If you procrastinate in your studies, I guarantee you procrastinate in all areas of your life. It's simply because your brain has this habit that I'm going to talk about in a second. So first of all, you probably have what's called a coping mechanism. So like I said, studying invokes in you this negative feeling, and that makes you want to run away because you're designed to run away from negative feelings. Like, oh no, all my friends, they are much smarter than me. So if you force yourself to study, you're going to realize you can't do it, and it's going to be painful because you're going to realize you're dumb. So you're avoiding the feeling of feeling dumb. It's not reality, it's just a feeling that's coming. And so your habit is to run away from that painful feeling. And what do you run away to? Daydreaming or your coping mechanism. So for me, a big coping mechanism was my phone, Instagram, YouTube. Whenever I would feel the pain of studying, I would run away to my phone. And here's the thing. I used to think that my phone was a problem. Like, oh man, if I could just stop scrolling on Instagram. Every time I delete Instagram, I reinstall it. If only I could uninstall Instagram, if only I could, stop watching Netflix all day, I'd finally be able to study. I'd finally be able to get my dream grades. But the key to realize here is that your phone is not the problem. Netflix is not the problem. These are symptoms of a deeper problem. So we don't go into our phones, we don't go on Netflix because we're craving them. Okay, so partly we do. But we go into our phones, we go into Netflix because we're running away from the negative feeling involved with studying. So let me give you a brief example to understand this. When you're feeling good, when you're talking to your friends, when you're having fun, you're probably not going to crave watching Netflix. You're probably not going to crave to binge eat or to go on your phone. It's only when you're avoiding a negative feeling, that's when you go onto your phone. That's when you go into your coping mechanisms. So simply understanding the fact that your phone is not the problem. You don't have a phone addiction. It's just you escaping some pain. And so when you understand that, basically you can take a pause. Let's say you're scrolling on Instagram. You can take a pause and you can realize, oh no, I'm not on my phone because I'm addicted to my phone. I'm on my phone because I'm avoiding the pain of studying. And you can try to understand what that pain is. And here's the really, really, really dark thing. Well, really brutal thing. Because your coping mechanism gives you relief, this habit, this pattern gets reinforced in your brain. So what this means is every time you escape to your phone, your brain learns, okay, escaping to my phone gives me relief. And it makes the pull to going onto your phone much stronger. So every time you daydream and you get lost in those thoughts and you go into your coping mechanisms, this pattern gets stronger. So you are not a deep thinker, you are not a dense thinker, you're not a daydreamer by accident. You've been building up this habit over 10 years, 5 years, however long it's been. So honestly, it's not your fault that you can't focus in class. You just don't understand how your mind works. You just don't understand how thoughts work. That's why you feel so stuck. Because you've been repeating this pattern over and over again and you're not even aware of it. So honestly, it is not your fault. But hopefully I'm giving you hope here that you can actually come out of it because it's possible. So understand that your phone is just an escape. But the more you run away from pain towards pleasure, the stronger this habit becomes. And here's the brutal thing. Most people never come out of this habit. Most people, they go throughout their lives stuck in this pattern. I see this in students all throughout university. They leave all their work to the last minute. They go into the workforce and they can barely focus. They always procrastinate because they're stuck in this habit of constantly going into their coping mechanisms, going onto their phone. And this habit follows them for the rest of their life. They end up wasting years in procrastination. They end up getting fired from their job. And so when you understand that running away from this pleasure is not true happiness, it's not true pleasure, it's simply you escaping. And you realize that you can still face the pain and not give the pain importance, not give the negative thoughts importance. You can begin to rewire this habit, which few people do. And if you're one of the few people who can actually face pain and not let it take you over, not get pulled away by your thoughts, and not constantly run to pleasure, I promise you, this is literally probably the most life-changing skill you'll have in your entire life. Like, for example, for me, I do online businesses. I'm very interested in that. I have actually a very extremely stressful life. If me from 10 years ago was living the life I was living now, I would not be able to deal with it. It would be so stressful. He would literally burn out. He would crash. But because I've trained this habit of not running away from pain, not running to pleasure, training my own mind, I am better able to handle this stress. And here's the thing, I don't burn out. I barely rest, to be honest. Like, I don't do the traditional rest that most people do. I don't scroll on my phone for hours. I barely watch YouTube. I don't watch Netflix. I don't, play video games. I don't have any sort of escape because I don't need to escape. I've trained my mind to be able to face pain and not get pulled away into these thoughts all the time. So begin to rewire this pattern now while you're young. Otherwise, it's going to follow you for the rest of your life. And like I said before, the pattern is going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So that's it. And yeah, going on this journey alone is so difficult. I was stuck until I met my mentor, Tushar. So luckily, my mentor, Tushar, me and him, we built this community. Check out first link in the description. We can help you personally with this problem of daydreaming, with this problem of constantly being stuck in thoughts and procrastinating, because we helped many students get out of this. For example, there was one student last year. She was a massive daydreamer. She could barely study, mainly because of a ton of pressure from her parents, but also because she was constantly comparing herself to the students in her class. But within 1.5 months of working with Tushar, she managed to actually focus effortlessly for 12 hours per day, and she got into her dream university. You can get out of this. But yes, it is very difficult to do alone. You can do it alone, don't get me wrong, but if you want us to help you, then check out that first link. Limited spots are available though, because we want to personally help each student and keep them accountable. So join right now if you're interested. Don't wait any longer. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, check out the first link below. Otherwise, see you later.